Hey everyone and welcome back. Now in today's video we'll be discussing about the Gossip Encryption in Consul. Now one important part to remember here is that Consul makes use of the Gossip protocol to manage membership and broadcast messages to the cluster. Now if you look into this communication here, you have a LAN gossip related communication and the protocol that has been used is either TCP, UDP on the port of 8301. Now by default, the data that is part of the gossip would be in plain text and it is possible to capture the network packets with various utility like TCP dump and others to retrieve the information. So this is one of the sample payload over here. So you see that you are able to see the contents in plain text. So you have adjustments, error. If you go a bit further down, you can get the entire information here. So in order to overcome that, it is very important that you go ahead and enable the encryption for gossip. So in this specific screenshot, which is taken after a encryption is enabled, now you look into the packet, you're not able to see any data in plain text. So to enable the encryption, there are two primary steps that are required. First is you generate a cryptographic key and second is you add the key within the configuration file. So let's quickly look into it. So step 1 is to generate a cryptographic key. So you can quickly generate one with Consul keygen and this specific key will be generated. And second is you go ahead and add that key in the configuration file associated with the encryption parameter. So you have a configuration file called as consul.hcl. You have a parameter of encrypt and then you specify the cryptographic key over here. So these are the only two steps that are required. So let's quickly jump into practical and understand things in more detail. Now currently I'm connected to both the Consul 01 and the Consul 02 instance. So let's go ahead and quickly start a Consul agent within the development mode. Now in order to do that, make sure that you go ahead and first stop the Consul from systemctl in case if it is running, and let's start in development mode. Great. So our Consul server is working. In a similar way for the Consul 02, which will act as a Consul client, let's go ahead and join it with the Consul 01 instance. Great. So our node info is synced. Now again, make sure that the systemctl stop command for Consul is run before you go ahead and do that. Now, one important part to remember here is that if you look here under the encrypt, gossip is false. So that basically means that by default the gossip encryption is not enabled here. So as we are already discussing that this LAN gossip that is happening over here, this can happen based on TCP UDP on the port 8301. So let's quickly look into it. So from the Consul 01 server, let's quickly run a TCP dump command on the port of 8301 to see what exactly are the packets. So currently the TCP dump is not found. Let's go ahead and quickly install the TCP dump within Consul 01. So now if you do a TCP dump over here, you see a lot of UDP packets are being traversed between multiple members here. So let's do a Control C. So here you see you have a Consul 01 which is connecting to our Consul client which has an IP from 165. Now again, our Consul client is connecting to Consul 01 and all of the data here as of now you see that it is working based on the protocol of UDP. Now to dig further, you can use a verbose and now let's do a Control C. So here you see that you are able to see various things within plain text. So you have Consul 01, you have source address, you have Consul 02, you have port and so on. So if you go more deeper, you can see the exact information about the packet. And this is something that we do not really want. Great. So I hope you understood the basics. So the LAN gossip communication that is happening, this is happening within the plain text. And if an attacker is monitoring the network, then he'll be able to get the data as well. So in order to overcome that, we basically make use of encryption. Now for encryption, there are two steps. First is to generate a cryptographic key and start the Consul agent with that key. So let's look into how we can generate a cryptographic key here. So let's do a Control C on both the sides here. And from the Consul 01, let's run the command Consul keygen. And this is the keygen that is generated. So let's do one thing. Let's start the dev agent and we'll specify an encrypt parameter with this specific key, which is base64 encoded. That's great. So now if you go a bit up with encrypt, here you see that the gossip is true. So our gossip encryption is enabled. Now from the console02, if you try to connect to the server, immediately you see it fails with an error. And the error is fail to join the console server. So this is the IP of the console server. And it states that the remote state is encrypted and encryption is not configured. So if a communication needs to happen, it is very important that whatever key that was generated at a server level, the same key is passed to the client. Primarily because even the client will be using this symmetric key for performing the cryptographic operation like encryption and decryption. So for the console client, also you will have to supply this encrypt parameter along with this key. And now if you do that, you see things are connected well. And also from console01, now if you do a TCP dump, you will see that all of the data that you are able to see in a plain text, all of them are encrypted and you will not be able to see any plain text data now. That's great. So I hope at a high level overview, you understood the importance of gossip encryption. Now for today's video, we had taken an example of a dev agent mode. Now it is also important for us to know how that can be done with the help of the configuration file. So as we are discussing, within the configuration file, you have to specify a encrypt parameter. So let's also try it out. So let me quickly do a Control C. Let's go to etc console.d and let's open up the console.hcl here, and let me specify an encrypt parameter. And let's copy the key. That's great. So now you can go ahead and start Consul. Let's verify the status of Consul here, and the status is running. Now in a similar way for the Consul client as well, let's quickly go to console.d. Let's open up the console.hcl file here and we'll specify the parameter of encrypt, and I'll paste the key. Once done, let's go ahead and start the Consul client as well. Let's also quickly verify the status, and things seems to be running. So now you can run the TCP dump command to see the communication that is happening on port A301, and as expected, everything is within the ciphered text here. Now few more important things that you need to remember here is that the gossip encryption can also be enabled on existing data center, but it requires several extra steps. So in such cases where you already have an existing data center, then along with the encrypt flag, you'll also have to specify the encrypt verify incoming and the encrypt verify outgoing. So here you see that there are 3 flags that are required for the existing data center here. Also for the exams, do note that both the TCP and the UDP protocol can be used for the gossip, and the port number here is 8301. Great. So I hope at a high level overview, you understood the benefits of enabling the gossip encryption.